My understanding is that WDC did not take that up at its board meeting last week. Your chair of the board, why wasn't that brought to their attention?
The HUD sent a letter to the Wisconsin Department of Administration last month on, I believe it was the 16th. On the 12th this month, the Department of Administration responded to that with a series of recommendations of things that they would do to work with the Economic Development Corporation, because these things go back about a decade to the old Department of Commerce and more recently to the Economic Development Corporation. And part of it is some of that still things are waiting to hear back from the federal Department of Housing and Urban Development. But they give their initial response in that regard and still waiting for more correspondence. But we're confident the Department of Administration is going to work with the new WDC to make sure the state's in full compliance, not just going forward, but looking back all the way nearly a decade. I think some of the original grants go back all the way to 2005, and to scrub through those to make sure that even during that time frame they were all in compliance. But that's something the Department of Administration will work with HUD on, and we're still waiting for more correspondence back from them.
Why not brief the WDC board about it last week when you had the meeting?
Again, it's one we're still, the Department of Administration is still waiting to hear back from HUD in terms of whether or not the things they're proposing are acceptable from them, and if those are things that require action of the board, certainly they'd be brought up either in a special meeting of the board or at the regularly scheduled board meeting at the end of the year.
One more question?
You don't think they should have been informed of this until the whole thing was completed and you heard back? I mean,
well, it's not completed. You can't. It's a matter.
You guys have been raising this issue for some time. There's pretty significant development in the last 6 weeks, and you don't think it should have been raised with them until you heard more from HUD?
Well, routinely, the federal government sends letters back to every state government about a variety of things back and forth, and the legislature doesn't convene a special session on those, nor do other entities. If it required specific action from the board, absolutely it would be an issue to be discussed on. But you're still in the early stages of hearing back from HUD. There'll probably be some more back and forth between the Department of Administration as to whether or not the things they're suggesting could be done, can even be done, or if they want further modifications. And at that point, if there are policy changes that are involved with that, certainly that'd be something to discuss.
Governor, can I ask you, yesterday you sort of renewed your call in the Romney campaign to ramp up the intensity, go bold, use Paul Ryan more. It seems that the campaign and the RNC, Chairman Priebus, sort of shrugged that off, with all due respect to you each time. But do you anticipate changes, or is it status quo?
Well, I don't think you're necessarily going to see structural changes, because that's not what I was looking for. I want more passion. When Governor Romney was with me in Janesville, when he was with me in Waukesha the day after Paul Ryan was selected, in both cases, I saw him out on the stump, passionate about his plan to help create 12 million new jobs in the United States. I saw him passionate about connecting with people, particularly small business owners he talked with in Janesville. I'd like to see more of that.
Governor, you mentioned that the federal government routinely sends letters. Would you consider this letter to DOA to be a routine letter?
Well, I think they raised concerns about a variety of different issues, as they have for years out there, but it's something in terms of a compliance issue. They raised an issue of concern. The Department of Administration responded in kind in less than a month, and it's something where oftentimes there's a fair amount of correspondence that goes back and forth. HHS is a prime example of that. There's stuff all the time. In fact, that's one of the biggest frustrations with the Affordable Care Act is we usually can't get very concise answers as to what their expectations are with different components of that. So that's an area where there are frequently responses in any state, not just Wisconsin, back and forth.
Was one of the concerns from HUD that WEAC did not have the legal authority to be handing out community block grant money?
WDC, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah. WEAC, I won't comment on that. Well, I mean, they're looking at a variety of things, again, going all the way back to grants that were handed out in 2005. So some of this is trying to go back, not just prior to the WDC, but even prior to our administration.
To look at specifically for the creation of this new commerce quasi-private entity, and that they did not have instrumentality from the state to be handing out this money that they had.
That's a component, but I'm saying of all the concerns they raised, the focal point of the letter wasn't just that. It was about grants going all the way back nearly a decade in terms of the administration of that. And so the response from the Department of Administration was that they had a plan to go through and look at all those in the past, but more importantly, set in place standards that would make sure they were in full compliance. And part of it the Secretary talked about was, in some cases, HUD making it clear as to what the expectation is, where it wasn't as clear in the past. And that's been helpful for not only the Department of Administration, but for the Economic Development Corporation as well.
That's all the time we have, guys. Thank you very much for coming.
Good. Thanks.
Understand.